Hey everybody, it's the Storytelling Sherpa. Here I am, 14 past 10 p.m. Just had a beautiful warm shower to wash off the day, and I thought, you know what, the house is quiet, everyone is still, there's a beautiful stillness on this beautiful Sunday evening. I think it's the 31st of May 2020. I was going to say 4, actually 2026. Anyway, so here we are, episode 10, right? Totally my style, totally my lane. Just didn't follow any of the structural podcast shit out there. Greetings and welcome. My name is Anita, and I am your Sherpa, as always. This is the Storytelling Sherpa. My voice, my journey, my lane. No agenda, no outcomes. Just the transmission of presence from body to body. This episode feels tender, hence the moodiness. Because I think there comes a moment on the awakening path that many people quietly arrive at, but very few know how to talk about. It's the moment where you realize you didn't just wake up out of one system, you woke up into another one. At first, many of us awaken out of the traditional matrix, the obvious one, the productivity machine, the survival programming, the conditioning around success, money, identity, status, achievement. We start questioning things, the systems, the structures, the narratives, the pace, the pressure, the performance, and for a while, that awakening feels liberating, like breathing fresh air for the first time. But then something interesting can happen, and it usually does for some of us, not all of us. We enter spiritual spaces searching for truth, only to discover that those spaces can also become systems. Another identity, another performance, another hierarchy, another place where humans seek certainty. And suddenly we realize there's a spiritual matrix too. A matrix built from healing language, ascension language, trauma language, manifestation language, frequency language, identity labels, all in inverted commas: high vibration, low vibration, light worker, starseed, healer, divine feminine, divine masculine. You've heard them all. And slowly, without even realizing it, the nervous system can become trapped again. Only this time the cage looks spiritual, the performance looks conscious, and the ego becomes harder to detect because it now speaks the language of awakening. And I think some people right now, myself included, are waking up out of that layer too. Not into cynicism, not into complete rejection, but into something quieter, more human, more grounded, more honest. Maybe what comes after the spiritual matrix is reality itself. Unfiltered presence, direct relationships with life. As I look over and see my beautiful little Chrysler sleeping, without needing every experience to become a sign, a synchronicity, a lesson, a cosmic test, or a spiritual identity. Maybe it's learning how to simply be human again. There was also an insight that landed during one of my it's not reset. See, I'm a little bit tired and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, but you know what? It feels right. It feels right. Because it's been a big day of energies. So, I'm just going to tap into that little bit of fake full blue moon energy. That's what's really overwhelming the nervous system and why so many might be wired at this present time, and hence the little bit of fogginess and the tiredness, because Things like that and daylight savings all throw out the natural system. It throws it out. Systems like that purposely are designed to infiltrate and hijack the natural rhythm, right? So let's rewind. There was also an insight that landed during one of my rest and release workshops that I haven't been able to stop thinking about, and that happened on Friday night. As everyone settled into stillness, as the room softened, as people finally stopped performing for a moment, I suddenly realized something. Many of us are not just exhausted from life. We are exhausted from managing identities, managing versions of ourselves, managing healing, managing perception, managing the pressure to constantly evolve. And what struck me most was how difficult it had become for people to simply rest without feeling guilty. Even in a room designed for softness, even with permission, even lying still, you could feel the nervous systems trying to keep doing, trying to optimize the moment, trying to heal correctly, trying to achieve relaxation. And that's when the insight landed. The spiritual matrix often keeps people in the same survival loop as the old system, just wearing softer clothes, or depending how far deep you're in, white clothes. Instead of chasing productivity, we chase healing. Instead of chasing status, we chase alignment. Instead of climbing corporate ladders, we climb spiritual ones. And underneath both, the nervous system can still remain in subtle fight or flight. Still searching, still striving, still believing one day I'll finally arrive. But what if there's nowhere to arrive to? What if the body has been asking for something much simpler all along? Rest, presence, safety, breath, permission to exist without constantly fixing ourselves and judging too. We judge ourselves. And honestly, I think that's part of why so many people are quietly burning out right now, not just from the old world, but from trying to spiritually outperform their humanity. Maybe the next layer of awakening is allowing ourselves to stop performing consciousness and start living it. Start experiencing it and expanding into it, whatever that may look like. Because here's a truth bomb. You know how much I love truth bombs. I've been sitting with. Sometimes the obsession with healing becomes another form of self-rejection. Another way of subtly saying, I will finally allow myself to live once I am fully fixed. But what if healing never ends? As we are told, the soul is infinite, right? What if there is no final healed version arriving? What if life is not a self-improvement project, but an experience? And maybe the deepest awakening isn't becoming more spiritual. Maybe it's becoming more real, more embodied, more honest, more capable of holding paradox. Because the spiritual matrix often promises certainty, but real life is uncertain. And I've said for many years now, the new certainty is uncertainty. Real life is messy. Oh boy, fuck, it is messy, mate. Let's say, since the marker point of COVID and the marker point of 2012, fuck, has it been messy. Contradictory, painful, sacred, ordinary, all at once. And perhaps that's the next layer of remembering. Not escaping the human experience, but fully entering it. There's also something psychologically interesting happening here. Human beings are pattern-making creatures. When uncertainty rises, we naturally seek meaning systems. I usually clean. And if it's really uncertain, then I do a whole declutter. So we continue with community frameworks and answers, and spiritually can absolutely provide comfort, and spirituality can absolutely provide comfort, belonging, regulation, and hope. But sometimes it can also become escapism. And there's a level of spiritual bypassing too, which I have admittedly used when dealing with death. Not always intentionally, but subtly. Instead of feeling grief, we transcend it. Instead of admitting confusion, we search for another reader, another healer, another download, another explanation. Instead of sitting in uncertainty, we try to spiritualize it anyway. And I say this with compassion because I think many of us have done it. I know I have. Here's another truth bomb for you. Excuse me. Not everything is a timeline. Not everything is Mercury retrograde. Not every difficult is emotion. Sorry, Chrysler just farted and it stinks. And I just breathed in that one whiff. Went up my nose, down my throat as I was reading my notes. Mate, as I speak truth bombs, he lets off fart bombs. Anyway, love him to death, but man. Truth bomb, so rewind, truth bomb. Not everything is a timeline. Not everything is Mercury retrograde. Not every difficult emotion is ancestral karma. Sometimes you're just tired. Sometimes your body needs rest. Sometimes grief is simply grief. Sometimes confusion is part of being alive. And, I'm going to backtrack a little bit to that grief. We're all grieving an old identity, an old mask, an old life, an old relationship, an old job. We're all grieving something, but we're not conscious of it, and we're not willing to deal with that grief. And grief is something truly mysterious and something that I'm just tapping into myself. Of course, there's no doubt there may be a podcast in the future about grief. And honestly, there's something incredibly feeling about I really should go to bed, but I'll continue. And honestly, there's something incredibly freeing about that. Because when every experience becomes hyper-spiritualized, we can lose contact with the ordinary intelligence of the body, the grounded wisdom of reality, the simplicity of being human. Maybe awakening is layered. First we wake up from unconscious systems, then we wake up from spiritual performance, then perhaps we wake up into direct relationship with life itself. And it's probably never really happened in any of our loops of incarnations because we've been trapped in this system. And maybe this is the time. So no script, no persona, no perfectly curated identity, no need to constantly announce how healed, aligned, conscious, or awakened we are. Just presence, breath, relationship, and reality. And maybe that's where remembering actually begins. Not in escaping the world, but in finally being able to meet it fully. So I want to ask you a few reflection questions. And I'll pause in between to give you a bit of thinking time, but you can always go back to it. What beliefs or identities have you quietly outgrown? Have you confused healing with endless self-analysis? What parts of spirituality genuinely support your nervous system? What parts create pressure, performance, or fear? Who am I without needing to constantly improve myself? What if I stopped trying to ascend and simply learned how to be here? What would rest feel like if I wasn't trying to earn it? So as I close this episode number 10 of the Storytelling Sherpa, maybe awakening was never about leaving the human experience behind. Maybe it was always about returning to it with clearer eyes. Maybe looking through the eyes of the heart. Less performance, less fear, less identity, more truth, more breath, more presence. This has been the Storytelling Sherpa. My voice, my journey, my lane. And wherever you are listening from today, remember this. Or whatever timeline you're listening to it from. I know I get a little bit silly when I get a bit tired. Remember always your story, your pace, your presence. Thank you, everyone.